Welcome back. Turn. Wow. It's Maker's Journey Workshop. This is the office. Hold on, let's go to the workshop. That's better, workshop. And today, we're going to break down the one and only proper way you should ever stand and swing a hammer at your anvil when forging. Shh, don't tell anybody. So obviously this is the part of the video where we make you wait until 7 minutes in or at the end of the video where we reveal to you the proper way to do it. Because it's a clickbaity title, so let's make sure that we keep you on and boost our view duration. Wrong! I'm gonna show you some different techniques. They're all actually pretty good and I actually incorporate most of them. But which one's right? It's actually pretty simple. Do you want me to tell you? But first, we coffee. Sweet nectar of life. Chuck E. Cheese for adults. All right, enough teasing. The best way to do it is whatever's most comfortable for you that's sustainable over a long period of time. And today, I'll go over a few different tips and tricks that I've used over the years and the ways that I like to forge. I encourage you to try every technique that you see starting out. Keep an open mind, even if it looks a little bit weird. Try it a few times. Give it an honest, fair shake. If it doesn't work for you, throw it out. At least you tried it. The way that I forge nowadays is kind of a hybrid. I apply several different techniques depending on the project I'm working on. Whatever works best that I can be efficient and comfortable at the same time. That's what it's about. Sustainability. All right, so for this first method, we're going to turn our anvil around. And then we need to get rid of this hardy tool. Now we need a special hammer with a real short handle. Let's make it happen. Rock, paper, scissors, hammer. Pretty easy. Just follow that technique, see if it works for you. Hey, thank y'all so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. And as always, if you're enjoying our channel, I'm not going to do it. I'm not pandering to you. I'm just going to act goofy and subscribe. Yeah, smash that subscribe button. It'd mean the world to us. We really appreciate it. And also, we'd love to hear back from you today. Do you forge this way? Do you try different techniques? What's your favorite way of forging? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. All right, this first method is called the Hoff method by Hoff, brilliant blacksmith who came up with a more ergonomic way to forge. If you have any kind of carpal tunnel, stiff joints, arthritis, or whatever, this lends itself pretty well to you. This is the way I learned as a beginner, and it's a great way to introduce forging to beginners that brings them in and lets them attack the metal. I have a visitor. All right, so the Hoff method, pretty cool. And the way you're going to hold the hammer, it's just kind of up here, almost by the head. This is a Swedish style cross peen. Hoff hammers are usually much stubbier style head, and the whole idea is instead of holding a long handle with all the weight out there at the head, you're able to have a little bit more control of it. And the way you swing, you're able to be pretty forceful and efficient while only using about a 2 to 3 pound head. It's a pretty good way to go. Great way to start out. Here's how we're going to end up standing at the anvil. We're going to put that horn right on your hip. And that way you can come in right here. And so the way we're going to swing our hammer here, the big thing that I remember most from hitting Hoffy style is loose grip here. And that way the proper way, no matter what technique you swing, something that I've always learned is you're actually throwing the hammer. And that doesn't make sense until it does. It's the weirdest thing I ever heard. But you're throwing that hammer and you're actually catching that hammer. And by holding it loose, you're not death gripping it and giving yourself blisters. And back to the big point about Hoffy style hammering is you're going to do most of the work with your shoulder. And so nice loose grip, come up, just like that. If you had that long handle, this would get in the way right here, and you'd come down and you'd be hitting. But since you've got a shorter handle, you can come in and really attack your metal. Something to be mindful of too as you're doing this is don't let your face hang directly over your hammer blow, because if you miss lick, it's sending that hammer right back to your face. I did this starting out. I got lucky. Be careful, be mindful. So let's attack some metal. All right, so that's Hoffy method. Pretty basic, pretty simple, very ergonomic and functional, and allows you to come in and forge as a beginner without any kind of skills, and really squares you up to the anvil and to the metal. So it's a nice way to start. That's how I started. Another thing that's great about it, with your anvil turned that way, with the horn on your hip, if you're using a lot of hardy tools and you forget to bring that hardy tool out, you're not going to crash your knuckles down into that hardy tool. That was a big plus to Hoffy method. The second big one is you can swing a much heavier hammer using the Hoffy method without wearing yourself out as much and be really effective. So you can work your way up to a 5, 6, 7 pound hammer. Something to think about. Try it. Give it a whirl. All right, next method is the rounding hammer method. Like I said in previous videos, we didn't have a big budget for a rounding hammer whenever we first started out. So I found this old sledge in my barn and I just cut the handle off and made it work. Same concept, you don't need a huge long handle. You shape up one face so it's round, and you shape up the other face so it's flat. So you've got a way to taper, so that's working like an aggressive fuller, and flat sides for cleaning up. I noticed that after I got out of blacksmithing classes and I started watching YouTube and I was starting to forge on my own in my own shop, that this rounding hammer method was getting pretty popular on YouTube. The guy that I've seen that I think all this stems from is Brian Brazil. I hope I'm saying his last name right, and a bunch of the people that mentored underneath him. It introduces a great way to forge some thicker steel without the use of power forging tools. And so if you're just starting out and you want to attack some of these larger items, kind of like our swage block we did last week, sledgehammer is going to be the way to go. It's pretty handy and it's going to let you really make a dent in the metal. Something I did keep in the back of my mind though, in my design process starting out as I was working on some of these craft shows, was not to attack steels that were very large too often and make them part of my production pieces. Because if I had a signature item that was a 1-inch bar and it meant I had to spend a whole Saturday working on that one piece, and maybe that piece cost a couple $100, could I crank out a lot of hooks or some other things in between? So just balance it out, see what's going to work best for you. It's a give and take. I'm not saying my way was right. I'm just saying that's the way it worked best for me starting out. All right, same thing here. We're going to choke up on it and we'll end up starting with our round face. The only thing that's different than I remember from Hoffy method was we're also going to use the edge of the anvil to really chew up the metal and bite into it. I've seen it demonstrated this way. I've seen a lot of guys that like to forge this way, and so I'm going to show you how we do that here today. Got a piece of 1/2 inch round. Right there on that round edge, turn. And you're drawing it up each time. Go back down. Wow. All right, so in our next step, we get to use our 2.5, 3 pound crossbeam. That's my favorite hammer. And we're going to do our drawing at the horn of the anvil. There's some similar techniques that we use from our previous 2 techniques, but there's also some distinct differences. Let's go over them. All right, in this technique, if you're a right-handed smith, the horn's going to be off to your left. Left-handed smith, other way, obviously. Also, if you start forging this way, be mindful that you're getting rid of your hardies. A lot of people that teach forging, if you're going to use a bunch of hardy tools, it's best to have your horn facing away from you. And that way your hardy's on the opposite side. And so in case you forget and you come down and strike, you're not striking right over that hardy tool and busting your knuckles. It's not pretty. Be careful. But the way we're going to do is still kind of a loose grip. We're going to move further down. And we're going to get a little bit of whip action. I wish I could play some Devo right now. A little bit of whip action hammer. And so we're going to make that 2.5 pound hammer get some velocity behind it. And it's actually going to make more of an impact like a larger hammer without you having to wear yourself out swinging the larger hammer. And so the way that kind of looks is you'll kind of come down, and then right as you kind of get right here, you're almost whipping it. So you're using these fingers right here a little bit because it should sit just kind of like this. Okay? And that's why we shaped that up in our first video. You'll see it's got 8 sides. If you make a fist like that. Got you. And look at it, there's actually 8 sides, and that lets the hammer come into your hand the same way every time. No, it may not look like much, but those are actually pretty good results considering we were using a 2.5, 3 pound hammer. So it's not my favorite way, but it gets it done. All right, last technique in the way that I do primarily 80% of my forging. All right, now we got a few minutes to talk. So what I'd really like to hear from you is, what's your favorite thing about coffee? I'm just kidding. How can you pick one? But seriously though, for this next step, I like to come in at a 45-degree angle, and that allows me a good vantage point to see the metal right here. So I'll stand about 45 degrees. Let's see if we can get a better shot. Because I barely got a little anvil in there. Poor little fella. There we go. So I'll come stand about 45 degrees of the anvil like this, and I'll make sure that my metal's perpendicular. And since I'm at a 45-degree angle, it's bringing my hammer strike in at a 45-degree angle also. What I like about this is it gives me a clear line of sight and lets me see what I'm doing. It keeps my face from hovering over the metal, and I'm really efficient this way. It's just what I've learned and what I've gotten used to. I also have this little habit right here. There's a couple different schools of thought on that. The reason I started doing it years ago is because my uncle did it, and he's a pretty talented smith, and I thought it looked cool. What I've realized over the years, even after I asked him and why he did it, he said, well, it just helps me keep my rhythm. It does. If you put a key in a diesel truck when it's 20 degrees outside and try to take off, that truck's not going to perform near as well once it's been idling for a while and had a chance to warm up. Same reason when they warm up their tires in drag racing. I think, personally, this is my take, my opinion, my view, my perception, how I feel about it, is that I make a lot more consistent hammer strikes and blows whenever I'm staying in a rhythm. Okay, same way you see a musician kind of tap their foot, even when they're not playing. Yeah, my foot's tapping right now. You be quiet. It's the same thing. But I know there's a large group of people out there that hate to see this. It drives them crazy. It says they're going to ruin the face of the anvil. And to them, I completely understand. I have this to say. It's my anvil. I'll do what I want to. But the negative Nathans are right to an extent. If you have a soft, subpar anvil, it's going to throw little chinks in it and little dents in it. Let me show you what my anvil that I've learned and forged on over the past 14 years looks like. And so I used to mislick and hit the anvil a whole lot more starting. You see that thing staring at? Stay. Yep, so I used to mislick and miss my metal and hit the anvil and crash into it a whole lot more when I started out years ago. And that's the same anvil that I've used for the past 14 years. And I've only used it more and more each week as I've grown and our business has gotten bigger. So let's give a primer with my technique. If you've been following along watching any of our videos, you'll notice we do a hit turn technique. I've seen Toby Hickman, God rest his soul, do this. And I think a bunch of the guys that do the rounding hammer forging techniques forge this way. It allows you to really localize and move your heat up and down your taper as you forge. I really like this style. I'm not great at it with the power hammer, but I always do this style when I'm at the anvil. So let me show you what that looks like. Yep, so each time that left hand that's holding the metal just does a quarter turn each time. Just like, you know, Captain Hook and the clock and the gator. I like that. It works pretty well for me. And you can actually grow your heat a little bit and control and move it up and down the piece that you're working. That's one of my favorite things I like about this. I kind of think of my style as a hybrid of some great techniques that I was able to learn from. I apply them whenever necessary. A couple things that tapping allows me to do is it allows me to adjust my grip so I can choke up on the hammer, or move back if I really need to be aggressive. And in those brief times when I'm tapping, it also allows me to assess where I'm at. And usually whenever I pick up off the bounce, I'm able to have my hand exactly where I want it at on the hammer and go straight into being precise and accurate with my hammer blows versus sitting there idle and stagnant. I'm usually not as consistent. Even when I center punch something, I usually either tap the heel of the anvil or I'll bring it up like I've already been at the top of my stroke on a hammer swing, and that allows me to be more consistent. It works for me. Try it. Hope it works for you. All right. So out of all these techniques today, the Hoff method, the rounding hammer method, the drawing out on the horn method, and the one I finished with is the one that I do the most. You come here. The one I finished with is the one I do the most. I love to hit turn. That's kind of hard to get a hang of. I think if you go out and spend a morning or afternoon or even a whole day devoted to it, by the end of the day, sticking with it, you can have it. My least favorite is drawing out on the horn. The problem I see with that is you're already sacrificing a little bit of wobble not having a permanently mounted base. And I like that. I don't think I'll ever mount a base the way my shop looks right now. It's going to cause you more of an issue is I think the primary bulk of your forging should be done directly over your base. And so when you're out here trying to move metal over these cantilevered areas, these things that don't have any support directly underneath them, I just don't think you're going to be as effective. If it works for you and you like it, great. Keep with it. Obviously, last week we forged our Hardy here, and there's nothing under that, but, you know, I didn't stick the Hardy hole there either. If I'm starting out again tomorrow, I'm 100% using the Hoff method. That is like the most ergonomic training wheels way, I think, for a beginner to start. And that's not to knock the method. I think it's a great method. It's just, it really lines you up and lets you make some precision hammer blows. Squares not only your body up to the anvil, but squares your metal up to the anvil as well. And it gives you a good vantage point. If I'm being honest, one of the ways that really surprised me today was the rounding hammer method. I remember not liking this method. I remember trying it and giving it an honest shake and even seeing demonstrations, and I didn't like it because I felt like there was too much cleanup at the end. Today, that wasn't my experience. I was pretty pleased. So I think what I was running into is I just didn't have great hammer technique at first. And I couldn't believe how quickly I could come in and really draw this metal down with minimal hammer blows at a comfortable grip in a way that I'm swinging a big hammer that doesn't really wear me out. I'm pretty sure I could go and do that all day if I just took my time. However, don't do it on your sharp corners. Yeah, I made the mistake not even thinking, got all excited, ready to record, and all I did there was just put a bunch of cold shits in it. But hey, we all make mistakes. So if you're new to forging, I highly recommend the Hoff method. I think it's a great method. Also, once you start to get a little consistency in your hammer swinging, I think the rounding hammer technique is great because it allows you to bump up to a larger hammer and really effectively move some larger chunks of steel without the use of power hammers and hydraulic presses. You have to be creative. You have to find these workarounds and be smart about how you approach your day. Make sure you're keeping your mind open to trying some of these new techniques. Every time you go to a demonstration, you see somebody do it a different way, go home, try it. Give it a try on. Give it an honest try on. Don't be critical. Don't be, my way's better. Once you get to the point where you feel like you know everything, you're done growing. And I assume that's a pretty terrible place to be, and I hope I never get there. I hope to be learning until the day I die. So that's a pretty brief overview of a few different techniques. I hope they're helpful. I hope you get home and try them. Thank y'all so much for being here. And as always, smash that subscribe button. Have a great one. See y'all next week. Did we say something about the subscribe button? Supposed to, you know. You staring at me again? Stay. All right. Smash that subscribe button. Yeah, like that.